Today on the BlahCade Pinball Podcast, Wally Finch and his talking parrot, Jane Fraser of Wacky Weather, and the musical stylings of Scalded Tongues. Here's your hosts, Chris Freebus and Jared Morgan.
Howdy how.
Decided to try something different. I don't think that one's going to stick, though.
No. Well, look, hey, that changes as good as a holiday.
But you know, I really
had a little holiday, haven't we?
We have. I really do want to, though, hear what the musical stylings of Scalded Tongue might be.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Ska punk, I reckon, for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a holiday, although it was more you having your hackathon, right?
Yeah, that's right. It went pretty well. It was more of an update of where we were, rather than a new idea or a new concept that we were building out. But it was really interesting to see the other people who participated in the hackathon and the solutions they came up for both epilepsy, type 1 diabetes, and the RACQ Care Flight helicopter service, which is like an emergency airlift service for people who get stuck on mountains and need to be rescued.
Okay.
So yeah, there was lots of very interesting solutions about lots of very different problems that were related all to those three sort of causes. And it was really good. Very interesting. And we were a classic hackathon. We were working on our slides during the presentations. And we just finished the slides off one session before ours. So 3 minutes to go, we'd finished them off. So classic. Yeah, good times.
Right. You know, it's only fun if you can go right up to the last minute.
That's exactly right. So we did that. But it was really good. It was a great day. There was lots of innovative solutions. And one of my fellow product managers at Ladbrokes actually got second place with her team solution, which is really cool. It was like an epilepsy profile sharing prototype for parents or carers and the young patients of epilepsy. So it was a really good solution. Yeah, it was great.
Good. So I, as everybody knows, my knee is all jacked up. And I've slowly been working on recovery. I can now actually fully bend it together. It's getting it straightened back out that's the issue.
Okay.
Because I don't have the muscle strength yet to do that.
Okay.
But I'm still relegated to the couch for the most part. So I took that opportunity when Stranger Things 2 dropped last Friday to sit down and just 9-hour binge the thing.
Right. And how was that for you? I've actually seen that.
That was good times to just sit there and, at some point you go like, okay, I got to take a break so I can eat. And then you go back and sit down and you watch more and more and more, and then it ends, and then you go, okay, so I waited an entire year for that, and I just consumed it in less than a day.
Yeah.
Now I got to wait another year.
Yes. That is kind of the problem with binging, isn't it? And it's weird, isn't it, that a lot of those shows that are Netflix or like cable TV exclusives, you have to wonder, I guess there's two schools of thought, but you have to wonder why they have previously in Stranger Things at the beginning of the show, because a lot of people just binge it.
Well, Stranger Things doesn't do that. Most of the
it doesn't.
None of the Netflix shows do that, actually.
That's good, because that's silly.
You're right. I mean, it's a waste of time.
Yeah, I know Dexter used to do it all the time, and when I decided to get Dexter on the internets, it was like, oh well, that's fast forward 2 minutes at the beginning, plus the 1 minute 30 intro. So it's like 5 minutes in, we actually get to the new content.
I've been watching a show called The Good Place, and they'll do previously on, and it'll literally be like the last 10 seconds of the previous episode. It's not a catch up. It's not a catch up at all. It's more or less, we're starting right up from where we last left off. Kind of thing. So I kind of
just to refresh your memory about what happened. That's kind of good.
Right.
That's a good approach.
But again, I think they understand people are going to wind up binging it. I mean, I think that's what has freed up writers with these shows, that they They can stretch out things, storylines, plot lines. They don't feel like they have to wrap it up every single episode, and they're trusting that you, the audience member, will stick with it. And if you're binging, you're definitely going to stick with it. So
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
it's kind of had an interesting effect that way. What else did I do? Let's see. I binged all of Mindhunter, which is also on Netflix, and I didn't play much in the video game department other than dealing with the Zen tournament. Which, hey, why don't we go ahead and talk about that, because we got 2 to talk about.
Oh yeah.
So we had, since we didn't get to it last week, we did the Fear Itself tournament, and that one was pick your own add-ons. And
okay.
yeah, so we wound up having in 5th place it's David 5 at 141 million, then Nimble Lee at 151 million. 3rd place is MS 505 at 204 million, and then it's myself at 205 million. And then Johnny 3W6 came in and sniped me with in the last 10 minutes and dropped a score of 250 million. And I was so distraught that I was going through the tournament and found somebody else had their own Fear Itself tournament, and I was like, screw you guys, and I went and I blasted their scores out of the water.
There you go.
Because by that point I knew how to score really, really easily.
But you didn't have enough time to actually become top place again because it was nearly out of time.
Well, the interesting thing with the Zen tournaments is, let's say it says there's 2 minutes left. So long as you start your game, you can play it for as long as you need to play it, until you drain your balls, basically.
So it's entries close. So basically, final entries, you got to be playing a game.
Right.
All right. Okay. Well, that's good.
So I saw Johnny score, and I hopped on to try and beat it immediately, but I didn't have a good game that time, so I wasn't able to excel. Yes. But like I said, I smoked the other tournament. I was like, you guys don't even know who I am, but I'm coming in and dropping a bomb. I
get you.
I mean, I'm talking like I smoked by about 100 million. It wasn't even remotely close.
That was a convincing victory.
Yeah. Flawless victory. And then this last week we had which I thought was appropriate for Halloween, the Walking Dead Survival Tournament.
Yes.
I don't know that I'm necessarily a fan of this survival, because basically you have 1 minute to get the next score goal, and sometimes you'll all of a sudden lock yourself into a mode where there's only one way of scoring, and that can become exceedingly frustrating when you got a countdown timer also lobbing at you.
Yeah. That is a pain.
So the grouping on it was much tighter, though. 5th place goes to the Doctor 2008 at 50.7 million. Then it was myself at 61 million. Ksenia, aka Sven, he was at 66.1 million, and he got bumped by somebody named Vu at 66.3 million. So close. And then Nimble Lee came in at 73 million. And it's interesting when you look at the leaderboard scores, something I discovered, they'll have, call it your profile picture.
Yes.
So like my profile picture is of our BlahCade logo. And if it is somebody that is playing not on the platform you're playing, then all you'll get is a silhouette of a face. And that's it. So that's how you can actually know if somebody is playing on the platform you're playing or they're playing on something else. So I thought that was kind of...
Okay. Yeah. So it's like a visual clue.
Exactly.
Oh, cool.
So I've already started up this next week's tournament. It's going to be a 7-dayer, and because it's in theaters this week, well, we got to play Thor, even though I don't like the table. So we're gonna play Thor, but here's the deal: it's we're playing it pure. That means no add-ons, regular pinball, high score wins. That's it. 3 balls, no add-ons. So it's check your true pinball prowess. That's what we're going with here.
Flop your skills right down the table and it's
right. Exactly, the big old flopper. It's one of those things where it's like when I go to pick these tables, I'm on the one hand I want to pick tables that I know I'm good at.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I don't want to necessarily do that either, because then what if I'm not good enough and I get my ego crushed? So
that's a risk. That's the big risk.
It is a risk. So I'm kind of looking for theming each week as we get there. Although I don't think there's necessarily a turkey table for Thanksgiving. Although maybe I'll just go literal on the meaning of turkey and just pick one of the truly terrible Zen tables.
Yeah. Well, which one would that be? There's a couple. Maybe.
Well, there's a couple. There's a couple of Star Wars ones that I would throw in that.
V8. V8.
Oh yeah, V8 for sure.
There you go. There's your winner.
Why did nobody play this tournament? It's funny too, because you can tell that Sorcerer's Lair is the free table, because probably 3/4 of the tournaments that are up are Sorcerer's Lair.
Sorcerer's Lair, man, that would be there's only so many different ways you could spin that game to actually make it unique enough. To play. Yeah.
So that's the deal with Zen. I'm still loving that product. It's been pretty much the pinball I've been playing. I really, really wished that I could be playing Ghostbusters, but boy, is that thing just ticking me off right now.
Oh, what's it doing?
Well, it's crashing my computer.
Entirely crashing your computer.
Well, I shouldn't say it's not turning my computer off. It's not a complete, it's not an OS crash. What it's doing is the game completely crashes, which in turn is crashing my display. And so then if I sit here long enough, the display will try and fight to come back. And so sometimes what I'll get is just the outlines of the various windows that were open.
Yep.
And what I'm waiting for is for TPA to completely be unrecoverable. And then once that's unrecoverable, then the rest of my desktop will all of a sudden pop back up on my monitor. And then I have to push close program. So I was having this issue in the beta, and I had reported it, and the guys got back and said that they were not able to reproduce this issue. I talked to a couple of the other guys that were in the beta. They also were having, other than maybe having slowdown issues with the table, they were able to load the table. My issue was that as soon as I clicked on Ghostbusters, and it would go into the what I call the flyover menu.
Yep.
It would stutter like crazy. Sometimes it would clear up and go back to being smooth. Other times, that's when the crash would occur. If it got smooth, then I'd push start game, and then it would crash. I had one occasion where it actually got me into the game itself, and I started playing it, and I noticed it was minor, but I noticed slowdown at the flippers and slingshots when the ball would get there, just be a little bit slow. So that got me thinking. I was like, well, this is so bizarre. You would think it would consistently crash, not all of a sudden one time let me in, and I couldn't figure it out. And I was like, it can't be my graphics card. My graphics card is a GFX 670, so it's not exactly the most powerful thing out there, but it's also powerful enough to run everything that I play. And in the case of Zen and TPA in DX11, I can run all the high settings and not have an issue.
Right.
So
I know Ghostbusters is it's a performance hog. Even on Android.
It's a performance hog, but I didn't know exactly to what extent. So then people were starting to talk about CPU usage. And so I asked, how do I find that out? So they pointed me to bringing up my task manager. And I was running it. And I got some interesting numbers here for you. So if I'm running Zen, Pinball FX 3, when I'm just in the regular menu, I'm running about 18% CPU usage on the game. Once I go into an actual table and play the game, the highest it'll spike is at about 50% CPU usage.
That's pretty normal for a
pretty normal
game.
Now, I should also note what I'm running. I'm a dual-core 2 Intel processor, and I have 8 gigabytes of RAM. So my processor is about 10 years old. I get that. I understand. Okay. But like I said, Pinball FX3, brand new game, running, currently or whatever. Like I said, it spiked max at about 50% CPU usage during the game. Now, that's on top of, we also have, I'm running my DS for Windows program, which is what allows me to use my controller, my PS4 controller. That takes up about 5 to 10% CPU usage. And then also you got to add in whatever Windows decides to spike. Sometimes it'll all of a sudden decide to run a quick Windows update check to see if you're up to date. That'll sometimes spike it by 50%. So now and then I would all of a sudden see the CPU jump up to 99%, but it'd be brief, quick, and then drop right back down. And not be an issue. So then I threw in Pinball Arcade, and when you're in just the opening menu, it would be anywhere from 12% to a spike of 50%.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, which is really high for a menu, but I got to believe it's just the loading of all the tables or something. I don't know, but it was kind of interesting. Because then once you go
down after a while.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. It hovers between 12% and 50%. It basically enters in at 12, wait about 2 seconds, it jacks up to 50%, stays there for a couple of seconds, and then drops back down to 12-ish. And kind of dances around there. You go into a game, and I tried various games to see. CPU was at about 10 to 15%. And I tried Circus Voltaire. I tried Ripley's. Ripley's actually was one that ran at about 20%.
Okay.
I tried Indy 500. I tried Big Shots, which was only like at 6 to 8% CPU. I mean, there's not much to run there.
No.
And then for the fun of it, I also ran Stern Pinball Arcade. And this one in the menus, if you got the loading screen, so sometimes, when it's first loading the menu up, it would jack up to 85% CPU usage. And then once you got the actual menu of the tables you could play, it would drop down to about 18%. Then when you were in-game, and I tried Mustang and Star Trek, it was running at about 20 to 30% CPU usage, which I expect that to be higher for Stern Pinball Arcade than for TPA. Those seem like acceptable numbers.
Yeah, definitely.
Then I tried Ghostbusters. And here's the problem, is usually it crashes before I can get a true CPU usage, but it immediately cranks up to 65% and only goes up from there. And usually it would spike all the way to 99% CPU usage just for Pinball Arcade.
Wow,
so
99%
on that, and then you add in all the other things, that's why it's all of a sudden crashing. It's just going... So... That's the part that mystifies me is, why does the game not just slow down? Why doesn't it not go, drop frame rates and just go to a crawl? Why is it actually crashing just causing my CPU to just take a complete dump? And I tried.
I'm sure they're trying to lock the frame rate is what they're trying to do, so the physics engine works. So they're trying to lock the frame rate at 60, so their physics engine doesn't break and you get balls through flippers.
But then why is it having slowdown for a lot of other people?
Not sure.
See, this is why I don't understand what's going on. Whereas,
do they have more powerful video cards? Do they have just more powerful video cards and more powerful CPUs? They have a little bit more.
Well, they have more powerful CPUs, but this is what I'm saying. This is my question is, why, if it's locking in at trying to lock in at 60 frames per second, okay, why is it not crashing their computers? Is it just because their CPU can handle more of a more input?
Yep, I'd say so. It's probably because their CPU is like a quad core, and it's probably got 16 gig of RAM, and they could have a higher end video card.
Well, see, I don't think
actually go and ask for their system specs.
I will say this: it's not the video card, and you want to know why? Because I also tried this out. I also tried this out in DX9, and I literally turned everything off.
Yep.
For video purposes, and it still immediately crashed. So this is not a video card issue. This is a CPU issue.
Right.
So finally, the guys up at Farsight said that they were able to duplicate the issue on an older computer that they had.
Right.
So I'm hoping that they're going to come up with some kind of a fix. But the question that we're all kind of bandying about on the forum is, what is causing this game, unlike all the other Stern Pinball Arcade games, what is causing this one to just go absolutely bonkers nuts? And is it because this is the first, was it Spike? That's the thing it's running on? Is it because, and one of the theories is that, well, they're not having to worry about optimization, Stern isn't, because they're not having to worry about real-world physics being duplicated in, being processed also.
That's right.
So the only thing that it has to worry about is reacting to real-world inputs.
Events.
And because of that, they can't put in any delays. It's got to be constantly on. And it's that constant on status that is cranking up the CPU to max usage.
Absolutely.
So that makes me wonder, is there anything that Farsight's going to even be able to do to try and optimize this thing? To make it run? Because otherwise they're going to need to really issue, and I mean, not that they're going to, there's a lot of people that can't run this table. And it's
probably going to have to give a recommendation on system specifications once they learn more about what hardware people have that are successfully running it, and those people who aren't, they can sort of form a bit of a, I guess, you may have troubles running this table on this hardware, and what they should do is make it the table of the month for the first month so people can test it and work it out.
Unfortunately, it's already past that train, but there's a lot of people that have bought the table and are pretty pissed because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And the thing is it's, if there had been any kind of a notice, if there had been any kind of a warning prior, that it may not work. I mean, now on Android, I believe, and iOS, they did say, hey, you have to have a 1 gigabyte processor, and you have to be running, at least on iOS, you have to be running iOS 10.
Yeah.
So they did at least
have 2 gig of RAM. They got over 2 gig of RAM on Android for it to run. And really, you only want to run it on like last year's flagship and upwards. Anything less than that is, you're going to have probably a bad time, except with the exception of Shield Tablet, because that's basically a PC and it's still current. Like it's still a valid device to be running all this stuff on, because it just eats graphic issues for breakfast.
So that's why it's one of those things that is really frustrating to me, because it is so above and beyond usage of anything else that's out there, pinball related, that, and this is going to be the only table that's that way,
Potentially, but maybe not.
Well,
like they're only going to be Spike tables from now on. So, and now there's Spike 2, which is all of the ones like with the color screen in them. So, there's going to be some that are Spike regular, and then some that are, the new fancier ones, which are going to be even harder to, not emulate, harder to run on the wide gamut of software that's currently being used to run those games. So, yeah, it's,
and I've yet to. They have not released yet for Stern Pinball Arcade, so I've not been able to test it in Stern Pinball Arcade.
I've tried it on Android. It seems to run better.
Well, and that's what some people are saying. So I'd be very curious to know if it does run on my computer in Stern Pinball Arcade as opposed to not running on TPA.
It wouldn't surprise me if it does actually run better, because you've got to remember they're not trying to emulate the code on Stern Pinball Arcade. They're actually running it directly from bytecode. So this is a thing that made me really skeptical about them including it in TPA, because as far as I'm aware, unless they've been able to put some sort of extra like support layer in, they would have had to somehow emulate the table, not run it natively. And you can guarantee, from my perspective, that would be the reason why you're clocking in at 60% as a baseline CPU. because that is emulation framework is having to go, okay, here's all the original code. Now I'm going to have to plug that through the emulation layer. And we all know that emulation is costly as anything rather than running it directly. So I really did wonder very much about why they were doing that. Because I thought, well, you're instantly going to have problems with performance because you're not running it directly. You're emulating. So you're going to automatically have a bad time. I think Blind Freddy could have even seen that. But anyhow.
I mean, it just, I don't know. This release seems like a giant poke in the eye, and
it's I would say a poor decision.
I
think it's like there's no real way of sugarcoating this one. It's like no, you're letting cats and dogs live together now because you've got Stern and Pinball Arcade and Stern and like, what are you doing? Like, you're diluting the brands, number one. And it's just, it doesn't seem logical at all to me.
No, not at all.
It's what are we going to do about it? Nothing.
Nothing. I mean, and
we can just add commentary about it and say, hey, it's dumb. But that's about all we can do because we don't have any control over it.
You know, truthfully, it's one of those things where it's just like, all right, well, I'll just go back to playing some Zen.
Well, they do seem to have their shit together. So may the best platform win. Honestly, it's getting towards that point. I mean, I still don't really have an opinion on Zen because I don't have an ability to play the new version.
Right.
But I'll be honest with you, I haven't actually played much pinball at all this last month. It's just been too busy in my free time slots for me to actually do it.
And like I said last time, it's interesting that my decision of what to play, whether to play TPA or to play a Zen, is coming down to this community aspect. It's just drawing. I mean, like, I've played to death the TPA tables, and so it's kind of, I'm looking for a reason to hop back in, you might say, to play them. And with the Zen
there's no
tables,
compelling reason to jump back into TPA.
No, because I'm just like, do I really want to go after any more wizard goals? I've already gone after most of them, and the ones that are left are kind of like annoying and take forever.
They're not pleasurable goals. Yeah.
And the leaderboards have just been borked to no end, and I'm done complaining about them. It's like, how many years have we said, please just reset them, and why there is this resistance to that is beyond bizarre. And then again, like, the leaderboards were just down last week. I don't know if they're back up. They're currently on Ghostbusters on the Android and iOS devices. They left in a developer's tool on top, which looks like a joystick, for which everybody's like, what the heck is that? And it turns out that it does ball control. Well, tell me that people aren't going to be jacking up some scores using that and then posting them to leaderboards. And then do you think Farsight's going to clear the leaderboards? Hell no.
No, they're not going to do that.
So again, that's why the leaderboards are so infuriating.
A waste of time. They're a waste of time.
They are. They mean absolutely nothing. So the only thing that means anything to me is, what are my friends' scores? And who am I playing against? And that's where Zen is winning, because I can post, hey guys, I got a tournament this week. Here's my name. Come and play. And I've got people that I know coming and playing, and I'm not having to twist their arm. I'm not having to remind them. I'm not having to set up a time for them to come in. I'm not having to set up an end date that's theoretical and out there, like when we were doing the
Zen Book Club.
No, not Zen Book Club. No, when we were doing Table of the Week and Table of the Month.
Yeah.
That
was so, like, pain in the ass. It was terrible.
It's so easy. And like I said, I'm not playing Zen just in regular table mode. I've only been playing the tournaments. It's just, that's what's fun.
Mode.
Yeah. And that's what's drawing me in.
Like, it's one of those things that you've got to keep on staying relevant in the market. And I'm just wondering if maybe this could be a bit of a time for Pinball Arcade to actually reflect and actually do a little bit of competitor analysis. They're never, let's be serious, they're never going to catch up to Zen from a quality features, because they're just such a huge team. They're like 3 or 4 times the size of Farsight, and they've got just a lot of money behind them.
Yeah.
So let's put that out there quite frankly now. Like, they just need to be a better Farsight. That's all they need to be.
Yeah.
And the only way they're going to be a better Farsight is to make some tough decisions, to remain relevant in their area of the market, which is real life tables, and actually doing that. Although maybe they don't need to, because let's be honest, who else is doing that? No one.
No one.
So they are the leader. So do they actually have to innovate? Probably not, because there isn't any other option in the market. The only other one is, of the likes of Zaccaria, but that's a very different subset of games.
But I just look at
they really are the only game in town. So like it or lump it, really. It's probably the attitude
I just look at Farsight's attempt at doing online play, doing head-to-head play, and it's just beyond clumsy. Especially when you see what Zen is doing, and Zen is so flawless, so easy. They've made it now so that there is always people playing pinball online, and that right there is the trick, because with TPA, when we would be trying in and I know the beta is a small sampling of people, but just trying to get people to be there so that you could have somebody to play against was a giant task. And then on top of that, it was having the thing actually work to pair you with somebody. And I think that's where Farsight needs to outsource. They need to get somebody that actually knows what the heck they're doing to make that kind of flawless experience. And then they can learn from it, and then they can apply that towards their own games in the future. But because right now, we've stopped beta testing the head-to-head, it seemed, a long time ago. There hasn't been a single innovation or anything done to that in months and months.
It's kind of dead. It's been put on the back burner.
Yeah, been way put on the back burner. And I would rather them just completely pull it from the game than having it sit there every month and me going, oh, let's see if anything changed, and me clicking on it going, nope.
Yeah, it might be one of those things that it could have just been an experiment for them. It might have just been something they were testing and going, let's entertain the idea of like this sort of, multiplayer experience.
Yeah.
But it just may not be a priority for them in the larger business picture for them. They may not think that it's a thing. I mean, there's a lot of evidence out there just to suggest that it's probably something they should be thinking about, but there might be other things. Like I don't know, maybe they've got to be doing something else there at the moment. Like they've got pinball. There's got to be something else that they're working on as the next. They've got to be thinking about the next. So you'd have to think that something else is going on there as well. Like they couldn't just be like hedging all their bets on pinball, because that's going to end.
Yeah, I don't think they are hedging all their bets on pinball, but I think that if I had to guess what Farsight's up to, it's a mobile game. They have been wanting to get into the mobile gaming aspect of things, where there is a cash cow of pay as you play. They've been trying to figure that out for a very long time, and honestly, that's what I believe that they would be developing for. I don't think that they're trying to develop a console game or a Steam game. I don't see it.
Yeah, think about actually this flows quite interestingly into Pinball Invaders update that I saw on Kickstarter the other day. So the short of it was, didn't make the goal. But in the update that I got on Kickstarter, for those people who did actually back it, you'll know this, but for those who don't, let me read it out. We at Farsight believe even more strongly in the game than ever before. During the campaign, we were honored and thrilled that Apple featured Pinball Cadet the week after it launched as new game we love, and then featured the game again as a best new game update. We also love Pinball Cadet, and we'll continue to make it even better. Plus, while Pinball Cadet is a lot of fun, we believe it is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what we think can be done with this concept by the talented people at Trick Studios. So, despite the result of this campaign, we're happy to announce that we will be moving forward with plans to help Trick Studios complete Pinball Invaders and bring it to the market. So, even though the Kickstarter wasn't successful, it sounds like they're going ahead anyhow. And this is exactly kind of what Kickstarter's about. So Kickstarter is a prototyping platform, basically, It's testing the market, and it's a very easy way of doing that. And what
gauging people's interest.
And it seems that they're onto a winner here. So it's a very easy way to validate an assumption about whether something is viable or not. And it seems in this case that yes, there's an appetite for it. So that removes what they call one of the riskiest assumption tests. Will people buy it? And it turns out they will. So well done. Nice little bit of iteration there, Farsight.
And you're right. That might be it's here you got a different studio coming up with a mobile game and all the pay aspects in it, and Farsight might be able to they can throw their weight behind it, and what Farsight does well they can help implement into this game, and then vice versa. Farsight can learn from somebody like this in terms of
that's right.
Here's how you develop for mobile.
Yep, exactly. I think it could actually be quite a nice symbiotic relationship that they've got going on here.
Because you got to remember, Farsight has been at this since
17 years or something, like total.
No, I think it's 20 plus. They were putting out games. Okay. They were putting out games for the Wii. I think they were putting out games for Sega for Dreamcast, even.
Really? Wow. Okay.
When I went to their studio, they had up on their wall, basically they had the cartridges of every game that they've made.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And they started off being sports games, and they were doing a lot of peripheral based games. So
like gun games and stuff like that.
Well, but again, sports. So like baseball, it would be you had a plate, a baseball bat kind of thing, or something of that nature. They did football games and stuff. So they were doing a lot of one-off kind of things like that. And then when it came to the Wii, they hit upon some party game, which most people recognize it as shovelware, but it was a bestseller enough that they put out, I think, 3 different versions.
Oh, right. Okay.
Or sequels. There was a trilogy of them, kind of thing like that. So it was one of those games, party games where it was just like, oh yeah, we can keep on producing this and put it out. That's why it's always with TPA. I think it caught Farsight by surprise. I don't think they ever expected it to garner the attention that it did and the fan base that it did, that would be so completely loyal that they were able to just keep on producing and producing and producing. And next thing they know, they're like, oh crap, we're a pinball company.
They were kind of like just accidentally gone down this particular hole a little bit too deep, and we're in it.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
the ropes, we've run out of rope and we're falling.
Right.
But they've certainly made the best of it as they've kept on falling down the hole. But
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Maybe they need someone like Pinball, like the Trick Gaming Studios, to actually throw a longer rope down,
right,
and help them pull them back out into a different market,
or figure out how to branch.
Yeah, I think it can only be a good thing. So I wish them luck with Pinball Cadet, and I think I'll probably get into it. It'll be something different enough that it actually might be a little bit entertaining. I mean, certainly the physics are good in it. So, I'm looking forward to sort of like a level-based take on pinball. It can only be a good thing, I think.
Stern has announced that they are, and actually they have pictures and everything. I didn't even know about it, but Guardians of the Galaxy is their next table coming out.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, one of the things, I'm not going to talk about the table itself, other than it is kind of funny seeing Groot spit out 6 balls just like, bleh.
Yeah. I reckon it's using the same mechanism as, like under Groot's head, to be using the same mechanism as what was it? The terrible Harley Davidson motorcycle mechanism. Vomit mech.
Because it's not like it's not like it's shooting the balls out. It's more just like it's just throwing them up. There's just this splurge of balls that's dropping down. But one of the things that people were kind of like, oh, wait a second, is apparently it's not going to have any of the music.
Yeah, it's like, what? It's crazy.
Which on the one hand, with Guardians of the Galaxy, certainly that's a major plot point, is his tape, the tape that he's listening to. But But I kind of get why, music is insanely expensive to license. And,
yes. They're all original artists too.
Yeah, and especially hits like that. That's ridiculous.
Big hits. Yeah.
But then as I was playing Guardians of the Galaxy on Zen, and they have their pseudo soundtrack, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, obviously there's no music songs, lyric-based songs in that game, and they're just kind of doing a generic soundtrack. And around the same time as I'm thinking about this, I find this article about how all of Marvel's orchestral scores for their movies are just this completely generic,
Yeah.
And to prove their point, they went out on the street and they asked people, okay, can you sing me something from Star Wars? Everybody immediately did the Imperial March or whatever. And then they said, okay, how about Harry Potter? And people were able to do Harry Potter. And they're like, all right, how about they threw out one or two other ones. Everybody was doing that. And they said, okay, now do any song from any Marvel movie.
And then
nobody could do it because there's not a single theme that stands out in any of the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
And
it's true.
And I just kind of went, huh, that's rather interesting.
It is, That's very interesting. And
they further went, though, that they said that it's not just Marvel that's suffering from this. It's a lot of movies today. And what it is that because all the editing is on, digital and non-linear, the directors, a lot of times, they'll put what's called a temp score in as they're editing.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll find some piece of music that they really like a lot from some other movie, and they'll put it in there, but then they'll have their editor cut the movie to that music. But obviously they can't use that music. They have to have an original score. So they'll remove that music, but then they'll go to their composer and they'll be like, yeah, I want it to sound a lot like that. So this video showed a couple of different pieces from movies, and they played it with, here's the music that was used in the temp track, and here's the music as in the movie, and they're so minutely different, it's ridiculous.
Oh, really? So they also say me because they can't go back and recut the movie because of the music. They don't actually start with the music first, or get early. This is like my product manager hat is going. This is like bad. This is bad.
So the Hollywood Reporter had a whole group of composers sitting together, and they were just having a general talk about this.
Yeah.
And they specifically asked Danny Elfman, who's totally a musical hero of mine, from the Oingo Boingo days. But they asked him, they go, we hear you particularly have this distaste for temp tracks. And he's like, oh, it's the absolute bane of my existence. He goes, I'll go in and find out that they have a temp track. And he goes, I will listen to it once, if at all. And he goes, and then I will never listen to it again. He goes, because I don't want to be influenced by it. I want to do my music and have my own resonance with it. And a bunch of the composers were saying that. And then they also kind of commented about how there's this new trend in the movies where and I know this from camera work, that this thought has been out there, but where they said, well, we don't want people noticing the music. Like, they don't want the music to be standing out and become its own character, because they feel that's taking away from the movie. They want to just, support it. And so it's one of those things, you hear it all the time where, like, with camera work, you'll hear people, one of the theories out there is that they're like, well, if you notice the camera move as particularly interesting, or that's drawing attention to itself, then that's bad. That's taking away. Same thing with special effects, where people will be like, oh, well, if you notice the special effect, then it wasn't a good special effect. It should be seamless and you not notice it there. But there's an opposite theory, which is, my love of practical effects over CG effects, or what I like to call, man in suit versus a CG monster, where even though it draws attention to itself, I love the artistry of it, and it makes me love it even more, as opposed to just being some generic, you created a monster, ooh, so I did not know that was a trend these days. And so sure enough, they played a clip of Captain America where the music is really down low and there is some person narrating over the top of it. And then they went, okay, now watch this. And they took out all the sound other than the music and played the scene again. And you got every last piece of information that needed to be given without the narration over the top of it. And you had more of an emotional reaction to the piece.
Really?
And it was, but they said it's the safe way is to do it this other way. It's not taking a risk. And yet the pieces that take a risk are the pieces that you remember. So
exactly. So yeah, pedestrian movies, everything.
Yeah.
It's like, why bother? Like, just why? Yeah. Why put music in there at all? If you're not going to actually let it shine. Like,
well, there are. You think about Quentin Tarantino; he doesn't use music. He uses songs, but he does not use an orchestral score. The first time he's ever used one was with his most recent movie, Hateful Eight. That's the only time he's ever using an orchestral score. But what I'm really hoping for is with this Justice League movie, which, I'll see eventually. I'm not excited for it. But Danny Elfman is doing the music for it. What does Justice League have in it? It has Batman. What's Danny Elfman known for? Really well, his Batman theme. Damn it! It better have that Batman theme kick in, or I'm going to call major failure.
Even as a leitmotif, it'll have to have the Batman theme in there.
It's gotta.
Yeah.
They even threw in the this newest Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man: Homecoming. Michael Giacchino did the score for it, and he worked in one spot the Spider-Man does whatever a spider. He worked that into an orchestral version.
Nice.
It was like, thank you.
It needs to have it.
Just one little moment, enough that we go, okay, you thank you. You recognized.
Yeah. Props to you. Thank you. You can go about your business.
Right, exactly. Go about. We're happy. We got our smell of it.
Yep.
So that's why I when they said that with Guardians of the Galaxy that didn't have any music, I kind of went, well, does it really important? And then I realized, oh yeah, it's the 70s soundtrack that people are wanting, not the orchestral soundtrack, because nobody knows what the orchestral soundtrack sounds like. No,
they actually don't. So yeah, it's a shame that they can't get one of these companies to go. There's I forget the name of them. There's a company that goes out and reworks music to get around copyright, and they use it all the time when you hear artists sampling other music. One of the most famous ones was this one that was a dance music track, and it had this sort of piano and violin sort of a sample in it, and they couldn't get the rights to it. So what they did is they handed over the original track, which was like a 70s funk track with this particular sting in it. They handed it over to this agency that then broke down that part of the song and re-engineered it in such a way that they couldn't get copyright on it. So I just wonder if they could actually go down that path and actually break it down like that and get around it.
Well, one of my favorite, and I've been showing it to my son, my favorite animes is Cowboy Bebop. And I absolutely adore the music in it. I literally, when I watched it for the first time, I was 2 episodes in before I was on eBay trying to buy the soundtrack.
The OST, yeah.
So, but there's a lot of songs, and when I say the songs, I'm talking about the songs that actually have lyrics to them, where sometimes I'll be hearing it and I'm like, boy, that sounds vaguely familiar. Or the artist singing, like there's one guy that sings songs where I'm like, he almost sounds like Bowie, almost. Well, what I found out was that they put actual artist songs in their temp track, and that it was, okay, obviously we can't pay for that, so they had Yoko Kanno, the composer, rewrite them,
re-engineer,
put in new lyrics, and re-engineer them so they sound close. They're not, but they're going to evoke the same emotion. Yeah,
that's what they need to do. They need to think smart about it and go, look, there's a number of ways to skin a cat here. Let's just be a little bit smart about it. Yeah. And then it'll be fine. Like you could sort of get around it. It'll be good.
Kind of like what Zen did with Back to the Future, where the theme song was sort of kind of in there, was enough to evoke, but then when it went into the, like we said the other time, when it went into where it sounded like the Huey Lewis song, but it wasn't, it was painful.
Yeah.
So Sometimes it can work, sometimes it doesn't.
It doesn't quite work. No, that's right.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, speaking of working, we're going to stop working on this.
Yeah.
We're going to let this podcast go. We will obviously be back next week to talk some more. In the meantime, why don't you hit up our website, BlahCadePinball.com. There you can find past shows as well as show notes and links to websites that we mentioned during the show. You can also check out Twitter. The show is at BlahCade. Or you can follow Jared and myself. I am at Shut Your Traps. He is at Jared Morgs. Last but not least, drop us an email, blahblahblahcade@gmail.com. If you have any show suggestions, questions for us, want insider information that we can't blab about, who knows what.
Yeah.
Any and all of that stuff, like we like to say. Yes, stuff. All righty. Well, until then, we will talk to you then, and thanks for listening, all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.